Okay, hello everybody. Thanks for coming. This one is going to be in English. I hope everybody here is okay with English. Yeah, perfect. Okay, so today we're going to talk about the meaning of art in the metaverse. So, first of all, to explain the meaning of art in the metaverse, we should first know what is the metaverse. You know, everybody's talking about the metaverse. You go to movies and they're talking about the metaverse. You play video games, they're talking about the metaverse. So what is this thing? It's something like, when we imagine the metaverse, we imagine something really cool when you put on VR glasses and you connect to a world in which you can play and go to places and meet your friends and go to parties. In movies, the metaverse is really popular. I don't know if you've seen Ready Player One, that movie in which everybody's connected to this place they call Oasis. Okay, so when we go to a movie, we always see these metaverse things. They get connected to this place where everything exists in the virtual world. It's like the real world, anything you can have in the real world, but in the virtual world, and better, and you can do whatever, and you can play games. So, but the real metaverse is not like in the movies. First of all, there are different metaverse platforms. So the metaverse is not one place that you can go and connect to this universe. There are many different options you can choose when you want to connect to that metaverse. So there are like some things that people take for granted about how the metaverse should be. The first one is that it should be virtual reality. You should have these glasses to really interact as if you're inside it. This is not a real requirement. You can go into the metaverse with a normal laptop, but in the future, the way we imagine the metaverse should always be with virtual reality. Another one is it should be decentralized. That means there's no one content provider. Normally, we're now used today to play games in which there's one company developing the game or buy products from one big corporation. In the metaverse, one of the first rules is that anybody can create. Like you can create your own game, you can buy your house, you can decorate your house, you can do whatever, but each user has the capacity to create content. Once you have a house, you can invite your friends. Once you have your own game, you can invite people to play your game. That's the way in which there's a lot more to offer to the people who get there, because there's no one company giving you the content. Anybody can create content. So then it also uses blockchain technology. Normally, when you go into the metaverse, you don't buy things with euros or dollars. You buy them with some blockchain or proprietary token or with some crypto. Of course, user content. Content should be created by users. And then interaction and events. You can go to a concert in the metaverse. I don't know if you know what this is. You can interrupt me and ask questions anytime. Does this sound familiar to anybody? Yeah?
Yes.
What is it?
It's a Fortnite event.
Exactly. It's an event in a video game called Fortnite. Fortnite is a battle royale game in which many people go together basically to kill each other. But then they say, okay, instead of killing each other and doing violent things, we can also organize concerts. So this is a concert in this video game. So in the metaverse, you should be able to have friends and interact with them and go to their houses and go to concerts and doing things together. Interaction and events is one of the basic things. Otherwise, it would be very boring, you know, connecting to the metaverse as there's nobody else there to interact with. So where is this place? Where is the metaverse? As we have seen, there's no one big platform that provides you the metaverse thing. There are many. You can go to Decentraland, Illuvium, Axie Infinity, CryptoVoxels, Star Atlas, MetaHero, The Sandbox, Roblox, Blocktopia, and others. Somnium, there are more. So you can choose your favorite to connect. Normally, nobody connects to all of them, because normally once you get into one of them, you get hooked up and you start creating, and then you choose your favorite. You normally stay there. It's like you choose your favorite bar or your favorite place. If you try to connect to all the metaverse platforms in the world, you wouldn't have a life in the real world, because you don't have time for that life. And your real life is really important. You should keep it. Your real life is the one that then you can go into the metaverse for a week or a few days, but you should always keep your real life. So if you decide to go into the metaverse, choose only one platform. Don't try to go to all of them, because you will not have time. So what can you do? It's this cool place where you connect to other people, but what do you do in the metaverse? Okay, you can buy land, okay? But it's really expensive, okay? People think, okay, you're going to the metaverse, it's like, I don't know, some digital things, maybe you pay €5. No. Land in the metaverse is really expensive. You normally pay with crypto, you don't pay with real money. But you can buy and you can make a small house, for example. Or you can make a football stadium, or you can make whatever you can think of. Once you build a house, then you can invite your friends and you can make a party in the metaverse. You can decorate your house, you can buy art, digital art, and put it in your house in the metaverse. Or you can open an art gallery in the metaverse. As long as you have crypto to buy these things, you can do whatever, and then you can try to sell the art to your visitors. And you can buy and sell NFTs, which brings us to the next question. What is an NFT? So now that we know more or less what the metaverse is, let's see what's an NFT. This is an NFT by an artist who's actually sitting here today. This is this is another NFT, and this is another NFT. NFT is basically a non-fungible token, and it's the first time for the first time, digital artists have a way of creating originals. You can say before, okay, you're a digital artist, you create these super cool animations or whatever, and then people say, okay, you put them online and people download them and they put them on the desktop or whatever, or they save the JPEG image on the folder, but you know, it's just an image, anybody can download it. So for the first time with the NFT, you can say, okay, no, I'm going to make only one copy of this image. So the one who buys this copy is going to truly own this copy. And it's going to have a smart contract, so when you own it, you have it in your wallet. In the same way you have cryptocurrency, you have Bitcoins or Ethereum or whatever, in that same wallet you have this NFT. And there's only one copy or 5 copies. So finally you have the possibility of making limited amount of digital art. And people thought, okay, it's a great idea, but it went totally crazy. People started buying NFTs, selling NFTs, some NFTs by digital artists reached a lot of money, and then everybody started trying to make NFTs. So it went really mad. Some people started buying NFTs and selling them really quickly, and some people started making a lot of money by buying and selling NFTs. For especially the old school artists, it's kind of a difficult thing to understand, right? But it's a new market. Of course, it works with crypto. Normally, you can't buy NFTs with real money. Now they are starting to have some applications in which you can buy them with a credit card. And the crypto that most NFT platform uses is Ethereum. Ethereum, which means something you can't touch. If you know about the world of crypto, there are many different cryptos, okay? One of the first ones and the one that reached a higher price is Bitcoin, is the one everybody knows, but there are many, many more. Ethereum is the one which is broadly used in the world of NFTs, and actually the price of Ethereum went up because it was the chosen crypto for NFTs. And then we come to this question about, okay, what's the real value of all this? Because this is untangible, you know, you're buying art which is on your screen with money which is also on your screen. There's not a bank account, there's no real money, there's nothing you can hang on your wall. And people, especially old people, or people who are older than 50, have difficulties understanding this. Why someone pays $3,000 for this, and they are not even dollars, they are this money that doesn't exist, this crypto thing. But then we have to understand that we give value to things, the things have the value we give to them. If we start thinking about real money, what's the value of real money? The value of real money is the value we give to real money. Real money is actually paper, printed paper, and pieces of metal. But we collectively, as a society, we agree, okay, this has some value. So we use it to exchange product. But most of the money we use is never printed. Most of the money we use are numbers in credit cards. Originally, money was backed in gold. This is something that many people don't know. But originally, there was a gold reserve in the bank, and you can go there and say, okay, I want my gold. And you would give the bank people $10, $20, and they would give you the worth of that money in gold. Most people didn't do that because they never needed to, but that was something you could do. Until in 1971, this guy, you know who's this guy? This guy's President Nixon, and he thought, okay, forget about this gold backing thing. Why should we have in the bank all this gold? Nobody's coming here to ask for gold, they just want dollars. So he ended up with the gold backing concept. This meant that the American economy went really badly for some time. Some people say it wasn't a good idea, but today most countries use the same technique. So there's no gold backing. Now, your money is not backed in gold, and it's what we call fiat money. The government tells you, okay, this money has a value, but there's no gold backing. So when we start thinking about how money works today, we realize that money works in a way which is really similar to crypto. It works because we collectively assume that money has that value. But if you go to the bank, they don't really have all your money. Banks work in a way in which they create castles of smoke, okay? Banks do a miracle. For example, if I go to the bank and I deposit €1,000, they have €1,000, right? Then someone else goes and they ask for a credit of €1,000. And they give him a credit of €1,000, they give him my €1,000. Bank has zero, okay? I deposited €1,000 and they gave the €1,000 to someone else who asked for a credit. Well, they really have zero, but in the banking miracle, they don't have zero. They have my €1,000 plus the €1,000 they gave to the guy who asked for the credit, plus the interest they're going to charge on that credit. So at that moment they have zero, but in their numbers, in the database, they have more than $2,000. So banks work with this kind of thing. They normally work with 9 times what they really have. So if we all go together to the bank to get our money out, they don't have that money. They can't give you the money. That's why when people go crazy and there's a big crisis and everybody tries to withdraw, banks go down because they don't really have that money. So we can understand here that banks and crypto are not so different. We have this idea that cryptocurrency and NFTs and digital art is not so real, but our system is also not so real. It's only the value we give to it. So, what's the real value of digital art that you buy with crypto? When you create an NFT, we live in a world which is really material. Really, we are obsessed with the material world to the point that we believe that the only world that exists is the physical world. So this creates this concept that if you buy something, you have to own it. You have to be able to bring it home and hang it. When you buy a painting, you have this physical thing and you can hang it. But when you're looking at a painting, you're not looking at the physical part of the painting. You're not looking at the canvas or the ink or the pigment. When you're looking at a photo, you're not looking at the photographic paper. You're seeing beyond. You're seeing an image, you're seeing a story. That's creating an emotion in you. So the really important thing about a piece of art is not really the physical possession you have, it's the emotion you feel when you see it. So when you create an NFT, this is an NFT of Horrible Adorables I created, you can, for example, add a link with an explanation. And you can, for example, what I do is I record a video on YouTube explaining what's the meaning of this piece of art. When you create an NFT, it's like a time capsule. Nobody can edit that NFT. You create it, not even you can edit it. Nobody can change it. That's a part of the magic of the NFT. Once it's created, nobody can change the content. So this NFT, when they buy it, it will be there. When I die, it will be there, unless someone decides to burn it. The only thing you can do with an NFT is you can destroy it if you want. So a collector could buy it and burn it. Doesn't make much sense, but someone could do that. So when I create an NFT, I have this possibility of adding a link to a YouTube video explaining the meaning of that NFT, and I'm dropping this time capsule into the internet, into the blockchain, and it will be there forever. People will buy it and sell it, and they will be able to click on that YouTube link and see what was the meaning of the piece when I created it. Here I'm not going to play the YouTube video because I'm here to explain it myself. What I'm going to do today to explain to you what's the value of an NFT for me is I'm going to explain the meaning of 6 of my NFTs. Because I can tell you, okay, the value of art in the metaverse is totally different from the value of art in the real world. Or I can tell you the value of art in the metaverse is exactly the same of the value of art in the real world. But to affirm something, I need to justify it somehow. So I'm going to explain you what's the meaning of these 6 images. And once I gave you the explanation, then we can reach the conclusion if the value of art in the metaverse is the same or different, or what's the value of art in the metaverse. So these are 6 pictures I've done. First one is by Peca. So what I'm going to do is, what I do normally with artists is first I talk to them. What I do is I take a photo of the artist and then I fuse the artist with their own world. I fuse them with their own creations. I put them in their own universes. So before being able to do that, I need to understand their world, because if I don't understand their world, I cannot portray it. So the first thing I do is talk to them. And when I talk to the artist, when I started with this project, I realized that for the first time, I was sitting in front of someone, listening to what they were saying without judging their words. Because what I said is, tell me about your world. I'm going to portray your world. Whatever, your craziest ideas, your universe, what your beliefs, anything. So tell me about it, then I'll have this image in my brain and I will try to capture it in a photo. And I realized that's something we normally don't do. When people are speaking, we are judging what they say in our brain. So we're doing this double exercise and we're thinking, okay, what he's saying is correct, it's not correct, it's okay with my political views, it matches what I think, it doesn't match what I think, and if it doesn't match, we interrupt them. So we're not truly listening to people. We don't listen to people to understand them. We listen to people to reply, and we're always judging what comes from the outside world. So for the first time with this project, I realized that it was really relaxing to just sit and listen to someone for half an hour without judging what they were saying, without thinking this is crazy, this is not crazy, this is in accordance with what I believe, this is not in accordance with what I believe. So now, while I explain these 6 photos, I'm going to ask you to do the same thing. Try to switch off that judgmental brain. The things that I'm going to explain now may sound weird if it's the first time you hear them, but try not to judge, just listen. And you can think they are real, or if you have difficulties thinking that they are real, you can also listen to them as if they were a story or a legend, or if you were watching a movie, or if you were a kid reading a tale. So the first one I'm going to explain is Peca. Peca is an Argentinian artist, and she's vegetarian, and she has this terrace where she plants her strawberries and things for her salad. She's a pop surreal artist, so her work is really magical. She creates these universes in which the world of dreams and the world of reality come together, and you connect with this kind of universe in which you receive messages which come from other places. It's this kind of reality which is more real than the real world. This is one of her paintings. It's called The Message. So what we tried to do in her photo is to capture this magic, and to represent things that you don't really see unless you pay attention with your 5th sense. Normally when we see reality, there are many things that we don't really see. Now, when we are like dreaming in the world of dreams, we're getting close to these other universes where we see other things. So all my photos have some symbolism that is trying to depict the world of the artist in a way. In this case, we have the moon in broad daylight. Normally, when you're in broad daylight, you don't see the moon. But you know how often the moon is there during the daytime? Nearly every day. Nearly every day the moon is there. Why we don't see them? Why we don't see it? Because we're not looking for it. We say it's broad daylight, you know? Moon shouldn't be there. And suddenly we say, it's there. Once in a week, once in a month, we think, wow, it's there. But every single day, normally most days, you can see the moon if you look for it. And then you have a shooting star. You know how often you can see shooting star by night? 1 every 15 to 20 minutes. But when you see one, you say, oh my God, a shooting star. Why we don't see them? Because we're not looking for them. So in this photo I added, we have also a UFO. This is not so easy to see, you know, it's a little bit more difficult, but you also can sometimes. So in this world we added all these things which represent the things you don't see because you're not looking for them. It's about activating this 5th sense that allows you to see those things. And then when you're starting seeing those signs, you see, for example, you're walking on the street and you're thinking, should I do this, or should I continue with this project, or should I stop? And then you see an ad on a bus stop that says go for it. And you think, wow, I was thinking if I should do this project or not, and suddenly I saw this ad that says go for it. But it cannot be related. My world, my mental world, my brain, my thinking, and the outside world, they are not connected. So how come, I don't know, it looks like some kind of sign, but it's impossible that the world is giving me these signs, right? My brain is disconnected from it. Well, the point is, when you see that go for it ad, your brain is focusing your attention on that ad. So you're not paying attention to the people waiting for the bus, or to the people who are in the park, or to the skyscrapers in the background, or to the fire hydrants, whatever else is in your view, it gets blurred out. And your brain focuses your attention on that ad, go for it. Or you're reading a book and you read this sentence and you feel like, wow, you're really touched by that sentence. Or you're watching a movie and you hear a character saying a line, and that line really calls your attention, and someone else saw that movie or they read that book and they didn't even pay attention to that sentence, to that line. You think, why is that? Why sometimes my brain is really focused on this kind of information, this line in the movie, this ad on the bus stop? The logical explanation is your logical brain, your conscious brain, doesn't have the capacity of processing 100% of the information you see. When we are on the outside world, there's so much information that your brain can't capture everything. So your brain filters what to focus on. And when it filters, it does so in a way in which it gives you the information you need at that specific moment to face the challenges you have in your life. So when you start thinking, wow, sometimes I think I see signs, I see this go for it ad when I'm thinking if I should do something. Well, these signs are coming from yourself. It's the way in which your brain filters information. That's the most amazing thing, is that it has a logical explanation. It's that your brain, your own self, is trying to tell you, pay attention to this thing. So it actually has a logical information. It's the way in which your brain decodes reality. Reality is like a puzzle. But when you analyze it and process it in your brain is the last piece. You add the last piece of that puzzle. So you decide where to focus the information. When I was talking about this with Peca, she told me a really peculiar story, because I always talk with all the artists to see how to create the photo. And she told me, yeah, sometimes the information comes from your brain, right? But some other times, what happened to me? And she told me this amazing story. She had a dream in which a woman came and she said, play 48, play the number 48. And she woke up and she talked to her boyfriend, Mono, who was also an artist, he's a sculptor, and he told him, I had this dream with this woman who was someone in her family. I don't know if it was her grandmother or her sister or a friend. It was a close person, and they both knew that woman. And she said, today I had this dream in which this woman came and she told me to play 48. And Mono said, wow. So after next week, she was walking around the street and she saw a lottery selling point. And she thought, okay, I'm going to buy a number ended in 48. She bought a number ended in 48. They were both starting to dedicate more time to art. So they both quit their jobs. So they didn't have much money. And they were thinking, what are we going to do to be able to dedicate our time to art? We don't have so much money. Next day, she checked lottery. And you know what happened? She won enough money to spend 2 years dedicating herself only to art, herself and her boyfriend. The most amazing thing is they both forgot who this woman was. Then they were talking about it the next day and they said, do you remember I told you that this woman told me to play 48? Do you remember who she was? And Mono said, no, I forgot. They both remember it was someone close to them, someone maybe from their family, but it's like if this woman left the message and she didn't want them to remember who she was. They won the lottery, so she told me, yeah, sometimes these messages may come from the way your brain processes reality, but sometimes these messages, I believe they actually come from someone else in the dream world. So this is what this photo represents. This capacity, this fifth sense, this capacity of connecting to these signs you receive when you're dreaming or when you're walking on the street or whatever you're doing. That's why she has this flower and these toys. These are her childhood toys, because this kind of journey into connecting with this universe that is around you and is also connected to you, is like going back to childhood. It's like recovering the inner child you have forgotten. When you're a child, everything is more magical. You know, you see whatever. I had a dream tonight. You see a flower and you're amazed. Wow, it's a flower. You see a bird and you ask, wow, what's that? And our education explains things rationally, everything rationally. Like, okay, a flower is the reproductive organ of a plant, and a bird is a flying animal. And they put all this rational information in our brains, and little by little, as we grow up, magic disappears. And there's a point in our lives in which we only see the logical, rational side of things. Magic is gone. So at some point we should bring back that magic and realize that everything is a lot more incredible than we think. This world, this universe, the fact that we are here, when you look at it and you say, okay, why am I here? You look at the stars and you think, who created all this? This is really crazy. This universe, so perfectly made for us to experience it, is so amazing that just realizing that we don't understand, the first step is realizing we don't understand anything. We look at this universe and we said, wow, we're here, microorganisms on a planet Earth. We don't really understand who made this or why we're here. And from that first moment of realizing that you don't know anything, you can start walking and try to understand things. When you start in a point in which you give a logical explanation to everything and you think you know everything, everything is rational, and a bird is an animal that flies, and a flower is the reproductive organ of a plant, you're standing in the way in which you made everything logical and you forgot about magic. And that's what happens also a lot in Western society today, that we forgot about magic. We analyze everything too rationally. So that's why the flower is there floating and the childhood toys are there to remember our inner child with that capacity of being surprised by everything. And this is the meaning of the first symbiosis, which is Peca. The next one I'm going to explain is the NFT on this exhibition, which is Horrible Adorables. So Horrible Adorables are an artistic duo of toy designers from Cleveland, and they make these incredibly detailed sculptures. They make like small sculptures, and then they create small felt scales, the fabric, and they put all these scales on the sculptures. So I captured them in New York, and the place where I captured them wasn't really magical. Like they were at a festival called Five Punch Festival, and they were on the stand with all their things there. And so taking a photo there was kind of boring. They were sitting there with their things on the table. So we went outside of the building. This is the Brooklyn Expo Center in New York. So the original photo, the background is just the glass. So I thought, okay, this glass is really boring. I need to change the background. I need to place them in a magical habitat of a forest of magical creatures. So when I came back to Barcelona, I went to a park which is Parc Central de Poblenou, which is designed by Jean Nouvel, and it has these windows that look like giant eyes. So I took this photo in which the background is like some kind of forest spirit, which is on the background. To make it more magical, I made it semi-symmetrical. So there's a thing with symmetry. You see there's like a line in the middle. That's the point where I made the background symmetrical. And when you make something symmetrical, sometimes things pop out. You remember when we were at school that there was an exercise which was about painting with watercolor, and then you fold the paper, and then you open it again, and then sometimes you see a butterfly or some kind of thing there. Because this symmetry has this capacity of creating things that look like life forms. Most life forms are symmetrical. If you see yourself and you draw a line in the middle, you have 2 eyes, 2 ears, 2 arms. This applies to 99% of life forms. They are all symmetrical. So when you apply symmetry, sometimes these things appear that look like life forms. And when I applied the symmetry here, this scarab appeared. You see the scarab there with the open wings, more or less. over here. So a normal person would have to say, well, that's a scarab. Okay, what a coincidence. But I said, this is a scarab, this is a sign, you know, because I believe in signs. So I started thinking, why there's a scarab in my picture? And that day I was cooking, and in the kitchen, I saw a little tiny fluor green scarab. And I was like, wow, second scarab I see on the same day, this must be something important. You know, the universe is trying to communicate with me through scarabs. So I thought, you know, there's an Egyptian hieroglyph, which is a scarab. And I started Googling and making some research about the scarab. The scarab places the eggs inside a bowl of mud, and then the offspring come out of that bowl after a few days. So for the ancients thought that the scarab didn't need to mate, didn't need a male and a female to create the offspring. They thought that the scarab can just magically create offspring. This is something called parthenogenesis, which is like duplicating, creating kids without the need of a male and a female. So the scarab in ancient Egypt, with these two perfectly divided sides, meant the harmony between the masculine and the feminine, the combination of both energies in one. And for the ancients, which is something that we still believe today, our brain, our two brain hemispheres were connected to masculine thinking and feminine thinking, or masculine energy and feminine energy. This is something that prevails today. We all know that we have two sides, two hemispheres of the brain, and one of them is more logical, more conscious, the other one is more unconscious. One of them is called the male brain, and the other one is called the female brain. If we analyze what kind of things each side of the brain does, we see that the logical part of the brain, the one we analyze we relate to male, is about logical thinking, mathematics, numbers, language, and focusing your attention on a single spot. While the female side of the brain, the subconscious thinking, is more about arts, creativity, intuition, music, love, things that are not so rational. Now, if we start analyzing the world around us, for example, our education, which is the foundation of our person as an educated person, if we analyze our education, we can see there's no balance at all. If you see the education they give us, the importance of mathematics, logical thinking, language, rational thinking, chemistry, super important. What about intuition when you're going to school? Creativity, music, art, not important at all until you reach university, and then if you want to study art, you can study art. But when you start studying, intuition is suppressed, critical thinking is suppressed. They teach you how to think. You know, the technique we use today to teach in general is like they give you the answer, and then they ask you for the answer. They tell you things like whatever, you're in history class and they tell you, okay, the pyramids were built by Egyptian slaves 4,000 years ago as tombs for the pharaohs. And then you have an exam and they ask you, why and where were the pyramids built? And you say, the pyramids were built 5,000 years ago by Egyptian slaves as tombs for the pharaohs. The better you can replicate that, the better you can copy the information, the higher the mark. So we encourage repetition. We don't encourage critical thinking. You're not supposed to interrupt the teacher and to say, I don't know if that makes sense. You see, we educate people who don't confront the authority and who don't think for themselves. They just replicate what they have been taught. So when we look at our education system, we see is based on repetition, it's not based on critical thinking, and it's really based on the masculine side of the brain, on rational thinking, on mathematics, on language, on logic, and all the other part of the brain is suppressed. What happens with this? That we have one side of the brain which is super powered, which is the logical thinking side, and the other one which is like turned off. We have one side of the brain turned off. And we live in this world of polarity, you know, in which we think, okay, you don't have to contradict the authority, you have to think logically, you have to do what you're told, do what the teacher tells you to do, then do what your boss tells you to do. When you're a kid, you do what your parents tell you to do. And you have this confrontation in which you have your masculine side of the brain really there and the other one is totally suppressed. But if we go to the root of what we are, if we consider, okay, we all have two brain hemispheres, right? I have a logical brain hemisphere and a subconscious or more intuitive brain hemisphere. When we only use one side, we are in this system in which the masculine is the one that prevails, and we have been in this system for thousands of years. We are also getting only on the outside part of things. We are not finding the balance between the two energies. If we go to, for example, you say, okay, if you're a man, you should act in a way, and if you're a woman, you should act in a different way. When we are educated, they say, for example, if you're a man, you should be stronger, you know, and you shouldn't cry, and you shouldn't express your emotions because you're a man, you know, and you should make money, and you should go out and work, and you should bring money to your house, and you should sustain your family. You should like cars, and you should like women because you're a man. Now this is slowly changing. If you're a woman, okay, you can express your feelings, you can be more tender, you can be more loving and considerate, you should have children because you're a woman and you can take care of your children. We create these characters based on superficial identity, because when you're born, you don't think about all these things. All these things are things that the education puts in your brain. And we create this kind of character. Okay, I'm a man, you know, so I shouldn't cry in public. I shouldn't express my emotions because a man should be strong. We don't realize that don't showing your emotions has nothing to do with being strong. Not showing your emotions has to do with being afraid of being hurt. So actually showing your emotions is an act of bravery. When we create these characters, we act in a way in which we're not really connected to what we really are. We're connected to this character we have developed. Being a man, being left wing, right wing, whatever. You create this character, okay, I am a man, I vote to the left party, and I am an artist. And I create this character, and at one point of my life, I believe I am this character. But when I was a kid, I wasn't like that. So if I start asking myself, what is my true essence at my core? Because when I was a kid, I wasn't an artist, I wasn't a photographer, I wasn't left-wing, I didn't vote for any political parties. I didn't even consider if I was a man or if I should cry or not. So definitely all these things that education puts into us are not what we really are. What we really are must be something else. We are not our body. Our body changes through time, you know, the cells in our body regenerate. So my body now and my body 10 years ago, not even one cell in my body is the same. So if I was something physical only, I wouldn't be the same. There's something inside of me that makes me know I am me. And that was there when I was 5, and it's here now when I'm 46, and it will be there when I'm 80. What is that thing that lets me know I am me if it's not my body? It's not the way I think, because the way I think also changes. You know, I don't think in the same way I thought when I was 10. What I really am is not also my emotions. My emotions change, but there's something which is permanent. That observer that asks who I am, that's something permanent. And if that something permanent is not my body, and it's not what I think, it's not my thoughts, it's not my emotions, what is it? That observer is my consciousness. What I really am at my core is my consciousness, is the observer of reality. And that consciousness doesn't have a gender, doesn't have political views, it doesn't have opinions. So when we focus our society a lot on a gender difference, on a male and a female, or on a political difference, right and left, or on a racial difference, whatever, we're staying on the surface. Because deep inside what we truly are, all of us, is just consciousness. So the society we have built is really far away from what we truly are, because what we truly are at core has no sex, no race, no gender, and no political views. Consciousness has no none of those limiting thoughts. So what we try to represent with this portrait is the union of both sides of the brain, the masculine and the feminine energy, because only that way you can find the balance. Now we're living in a time in which the feminine energy is growing really big. You know, it's coming back to reclaim its power, to reclaim its balance in society. We came out of many thousands of years of patriarchy, which have been terrible for all of us. We don't realize how patriarchy has been terrible, especially for women, but also for men. This is something that is really important to understand. When a man doesn't cry, when a man doesn't show tenderness, when a man is unable to express his emotions, that person is traumatized. When we educate kids, when we educate boys, we traumatize them. We teach them not to show their emotions, not to cry. So we have a society in which a big percentage of men, especially people who are older, are heavily traumatized. When we restore the balance of the energies, that will be really good for the women collective, because finally they will be treated as equals and they will be able to display power and security and work and earn money and do whatever. But it will also be good for all the collective or traumatized men who have been taught and educated into not showing their emotions, into not crying in public. The real balance of energies is really good for society as a whole. Now with the feminist movement, some men see it as a threat, like, wow, you know, I don't know how to react to this. But they don't realize that that's good for themselves too. So in this portrait, the representation of the male is really different from the typical representation of the male. We have a male which shows tenderness, because he's a male who has accepted his female side. We all have both energies. This is basic to understand. When we talk about both hemispheres of the brain, when we talk about both energies, it's something we all have. It's not like, we're not talking about sex, we're not talking about something separated. We all have two hemispheres. We all have male and female energy. So when the male is capable of accepting his female side, he's capable of accepting unconditional love and tenderness and showing emotion and showing love to others, it becomes this new man. This is the future man. It's a man who's not afraid of showing love. It's a man who's not afraid of crying. It's a man who had balanced. This is something that now in the society we live in general, men are a lot more traumatized than women. Women are coming strong with the power of knowing to be right. They are saying, okay, this is enough. Enough patriarchy, enough sexism, enough violence towards us. Women have been felt guilty just for the fact of being women, just for the fact of being beautiful, just for the fact of being attractive to men. They have been punished for thousands of years. This is coming to an end, and we're living a beautiful time. It's the beginning of a beautiful time where we're going. But we have to understand also that for many men it's a difficult thing, you know, and when they embrace both energies, they are going to be a lot happier. So this is what we try to represent with this portrait. It's the union of the male and the female energy in one. That's why she's wearing an engagement ring, and that's what the scarab represents in the middle of the picture. Okay, so now I'm going to explain the next photo, which is Vanesa Muñoz. So Vanesa Muñoz is a sculptress. She's an abstract sculptress. And when I took her picture, I wasn't really into abstract sculpture. For me, abstract sculpture was just like some kind of shapes which didn't really represent much to me. But when I started analyzing her job, her work, I found it really interesting. She is really interested in physics, mathematics, geometry, and she tries to represent through sculpture things that come from the world of mathematics and physics. For example, this is the duality of a wave and a particle. This is the wave side, which is made of wood, and the other is the particle side, which is made of iron. This is her representation of the event horizon. The event horizon is a cosmic phenomena, and it's the place where a particle is so close to a black hole that it's going to be absorbed into the black hole. There's no way back. This is her physical representation of the event horizon. This is the quadrature of a circle. This is a mathematical equation that allows you, well, it's a mathematical system that allows you to transform a square into a cycle with the same diameter without using any tools. And this is how she, in her brains, interprets the quadrature of a circle as a sculpture. And this represents the longitude and latitude, which is a system to position any point in space. So when I started seeing her work, I found it really interesting. This, what she's having in her hand, is called ball for a synesthetic. And it's a ball that synesthesia is an illness that makes you mix your senses. So you can see a sound or you can smell a color. So she created this ball which is metal on the outside and really fluffy and cushiony on the inside. So with the same shape, you get two different feelings. She really likes quantum physics, and she has this book called The Quantum Enigma. She likes to read this book before sleeping. The Quantum Enigma, quantum physics is going into a place in which it's telling us really crazy things. We always thought that science was the rational thing and religion was the crazy thing. But now everything is starting to change, because when we try to understand quantum physics, we realize it's really, really, really crazy. Like they tell us that atoms are like waves, not solids. There's nothing really solid in the world. Everything is constantly flowing. An atom can be two places at the same time. So we're starting to see that physics are going into a place which is really crazy. So she likes to read this book before sleeping, and one day she came home and she took out her shoes and she was playing the musical saw for a while after reading the Quantum Enigma, and then she went to sleep. And while she was sleeping, she had this amazing dream in which she was floating and she had 6 arms and she could work on her sculptures and paint them with amazing dexterity while drinking wine at the same time. She was floating around the room with a saw and a drill, and she was working on the sculptures really quickly. And at one point she thought, well, this is crazy, this can't be happening. This defies the laws of physics. I can't be flying, I can't have 6 arms, what's going on? This is really weird. So she thought, I must be dreaming. The only explanation is that this is a dream. So normally when you dream and you realize you're dreaming, you immediately wake up. But the exotic plants she had by the window had been struck by a blow of wind, which allowed her to continue dreaming while knowing she was in a dream, because she was sedated by this magical pollen. At that point she realized you can dream and continue dreaming while knowing you're in a dream, and she reached this state which is called lucid dreaming. And then she had this moment of enlightenment and she thought, now I understand the quantum enigma. A body or an object can be in 2 places at the same time because it's in 2 different dimensions of the same reality. And she realized that her physical body was on the sofa and her astral body was floating around the room. So she thought, okay, I don't have just one body. All my life I thought I had one body, the physical one. But now I realize I have 2. I have a physical body and an astral body. The astral body in the world of dreams is floating, while my physical body is in the sofa. So that's why an atom can be in 2 places at the same time. It's in 2 different dimensions of the same reality. And she had this feeling that all the atoms on her body were like lighter. They were moving faster. And she had this feeling that her astral body was actually a lot lighter than her physical body. While she was in this astral plane, she could create and design any sculpture she wanted really fast, because anything she could think of automatically manifested. So if she think, okay, I'm going to create a big wooden sculpture, she could see a big wooden sculpture. She realized that in the mental plane, everything is really easy, because whatever we think becomes reality. So you're thinking, okay, I'm going to do a wooden sculpture or an iron sculpture or a big sculpture, a triangle sculpture, circular sculpture, whatever you think of manifests automatically in the mind. But in the physical world, you have to make it real, you have to make it physical, you have to materialize it, so it's a lot harder. It takes time. You have to go and buy wood, you have to chop the wood, you have to model it, you have to give it the shape you want to give it. So at that point she thought, okay, now I understand when people say, I had this moment of enlightenment, someone is meditating and then they have this moment of enlightenment. Now I understand what happens is that they are so relaxed in the meditation, they enter into a dream, into a lucid dream. So their astral body goes out of their physical body, and when it goes out of the physical body, it disconnects from the ego. Your physical body is the densest form of reality. It's like the dense character you have created in this world. But your astral body is lighter. So when you're in the astral body, you realize your atoms are the same atoms that form all reality. You realize that all reality is formed by the same particles, and you realize that you are actually vibration. Atoms are actually vibration. Actually, 99% of matter is energy. When you see an atom, the nucleus of the atom is really, really, really far away from the electrons. The electrons that are going around the nucleus are really far away. 99% of the atom is energy. The reason why we can't go through a physical object, if I put my hands together, they don't go through each other because they are both electromagnetic fields, with a negative charge that repels each other. So the things that we consider matter are actually electromagnetic fields. So at that point she realized that there's a logical explanation for being enlightened. The logical explanation is that we leave our physical body, we connect to our astral body, we realize that our atoms are connected to everything else in the universe, and we realize that we are everything because we leave our densest ego in our physical body. She really loved this because she was really interested in finding the logical explanation about things, as about the same thing we explained before about the fact that you are consciousness, you're not your body. When you reach this conclusion logically, you convince your rational brain about it. And we have these two brains, like the emotional brain doesn't need any explanation, because when you feel an emotion, you feel it, you feel rage or you feel love. Nobody has to explain that. But the other side of the brain is more tricky. The other side of the brain needs to understand things because it's the rational side of the brain. It's not, no, I don't understand what's the meaning of being enlightened. I need to know. I don't understand what's the meaning of that we are all consciousness. I need to know. So when you reach these conclusions logically, when you realize you're not your body, your consciousness, or you realize your atoms are part of all the same thing, you're finally convincing the rational part of the brain about that truth. And that is a good thing. We're now living in a world which is really, really, really rational and logical. So the only way of moving forward is to understanding rationally and logically all these things. Then you convince the other part of the brain and you finally find the balance. And this is the story of Vanesa Muñoz. Now, the next one I'm going to explain is Adrian Cox. So Adrian Cox is a visionary artist from LA, from the United States. And he has this really peculiar technique to create his paintings. When he's in his studio, he has this really messy desk with many things. So first he enters a state of meditation, he relaxes a lot. He closes his eyes and he starts touching all the elements he has on the table. And he feels the energy of that element, whatever it is, a brush or a paint tube or whatever. If the energy is positive, he keeps that element on the other hand. And after a while, when he has picked up enough elements, he starts feeling like a breeze flowing around him and a buzz. And for a second, in this state of meditation, he sees himself as the piece he's going to create. And he transforms into that piece. He has this vision. When he has this vision, he's really ready to start painting. So, as we saw before with Vanesa Muñoz, anything that we create as artists comes from our brain. You see, if you're going to make a sculpture or an NFT or a painting or whatever you're going to create, first you think about it. You think, okay, I'm going to create a sculpture made of wood, or I'm going to create a painting of a guy with flowers on his head, or I'm going to create whatever. Everything starts first in the mental plane. And then you make it physical, you make it real. But nothing pops into existence magically. Everything comes first as an idea. Anything. This building was an idea in the mind of the architect. This festival was an idea in the mind of the people who created the festival. Every book you have read, every movie you have seen, all the things created by humans started in the brain. So the mental plane comes before the physical plane. Now, when Adrian is creating, he connects to a place which is not so mental. It's more like a world of consciousness. He has these visions. So he kind of skips one level. He says, okay, instead of thinking about what I'm going to do, I'm trying to directly feel what I'm going to do. So in his world, he connects with these visions. This is one of his paintings. It's called Big Thinker with Philosophical Treatise. And there's this theory that when we create, our brain is not really the origin of what we create. Our brain is like an antenna, and the brain connects to this information that we then put into the painting. So for example, when we observe reality, for example, when Newton saw the apple falling from the tree, he didn't invent gravity. He discovered gravity. He thought, okay, there's an apple falling from a tree. That means the earth is pulling the apple. That means that all the bodies in the universe attract other bodies. The bigger a body is, the more attraction it pulls. So of course he didn't invent it. Gravity existed thousands, millions of years before Newton was born. Gravity is one of the laws in which our reality is based. We didn't invent mathematics. Mathematics are the base of our reality. We didn't invent geometry. We didn't invent any of these things. We just analyze this amazing world. We start reaching conclusions. We try to understand this world. And then by interpreting the outside world, we reach these conclusions. But those things don't really come from our brain. They come from observing the world. So when Adrian paints, he has these visions. For example, I really love his work. This one is called The Spirit Gardener, Searching for New Horizons. So he has these visions in which he says he's not connecting to the mental world, he's connecting to the world of consciousness and having these visions. When we create something, we are creating from this connection. And we think, okay, artists, you know, they have this creativity and they have this thing about being creative and being intuitive. But this is not something that happens only in art. This is something that can happen everywhere. For example, this guy Ramanujan, he was an Indian mathematician. He was a gifted kid. When he was a kid, he was really good with numbers, to the point that he would start developing his own theories and showing it to people, and nobody would understand them. In India, they would say, I don't really understand anything about what you're saying. He finally managed to contact Hardy, which was a teacher of maths in the University of Cambridge, and when he saw his work, he thought, wow, he's so intuitive, and he has these crazy theories and ideas. He invited him to go to Cambridge, but his mother said no, because his mother didn't want him to leave his small town in India. After 2 months, his mother had a dream in which a goddess came and told her, stop standing in the path between your son and his purpose in this life. And she went to his son and said, wow, I had this dream. This goddess came to me and she said, I shouldn't stand in your path, so please go to Cambridge. So he went to Cambridge. And when they asked him, where do your theories come from? You have to prove them. In maths, he was an expert in what we call pure mathematics, which are mathematical theories that don't have an application in the real world. It's just pure mathematics. But what he thought was pure mathematics, now some of his theories are used to explain the behavior of black holes. So what we call pure mathematics are maths that we don't really understand what is the application on the real world yet. But there are some mathematicians that said that all maths have an application in the real world. Now, when they started asking him to prove his theories, proving a theory takes a long time. So he spent, because also he was an Indian living in England some centuries ago, it was really hard for him, and most people didn't believe that his theories were true. So they forced him to spend weeks and weeks and weeks making the proofs of his theories, which he found incredibly boring. When they asked him, where do you come with these creative and so intuitive equations and theories, he said, when I'm sleeping or when I'm praying, I see a goddess that comes to me and she shows me the numbers and the equations. And they thought, okay, this guy must be crazy. But this guy is the proof that creativity and intuition is not only applicable to art. Any person, even a mathematician who is supposed to be the most logical person in the universe, can be incredibly creative and intuitive. When he died, like many years after he died, they found one of his notebooks, which was 600 pages of theories without any kind of proof. And they started working in order to prove them. I have the theory that he never showed that book to anyone so that they don't make him prove it. And now, after many mathematicians have been working on those theories, they are realizing that most of them are correct. Now, when we create, anybody can create. Okay? In order to create, you don't need to be an artist or consider yourself an artist. Every act is an act of creation. Developing an equation, saying something, doing something, having a project. At all times, we're creating our future. Have you ever thought about this? The position we are in our lives today depends on all the decisions and the projects and the ideas we had in the past. If I am here today speaking to you, it's because one point in the past I decided to have this project and start taking pictures of artists and create art, create NFTs, and I was invited here. So the place where you stand now is the result of a really long thought process. So you're defining with your thought, when you put your intention, when you put your plans and your projects, you're creating, you're defining your future. You say, okay, I want to be an artist, I want to make a photographer, I want to be a teacher, I want to be a mathematician, I want to go to Cambridge. You put that energy there with your thought. So your thought is the origin of your future. You are constantly creating your future. If you put your thoughts into bad places, in the same way they can't be a tree without a seed. They can be an act without a thought. All your actions are based in thoughts, even the ones that look automatic, like there's a fly flying around and I close my eye. That's because my brain told my eye to blink so that the fly doesn't go inside. So all the things we do, everything, even the ones that look like an instinct, they come from our brain. This is something essential because most times we don't realize how important thoughts are. If we focus a lot into negative thinking and we think everything's going to be a disaster, I hate this person, I hate my father, I hate my mother, we're creating bad fruit, bad trees, because we're focusing constantly on bad negative thinking. If we focus on positive thinking, this is going to work out, this will be okay, I'm going to give a great talk today, we're creating a better future. Sometimes when you feel stressed about things, it's like, when you worry too much about the future, you're not living in the present moment. Like, I think, okay, tomorrow I'm going to give this talk about NFTs. What if nobody comes and I'm there trying to sleep thinking nobody's going to come? What if so many people come that they don't fit in the room? And your brain is creating these problems in the future. Makes no sense. You're trying to live in the moment in which you're not there. So it's really important to realize that your thoughts are the ones that create your future. When you express your thoughts, when you express what comes, you're actually, in your life, as an artist or whatever you do, as a mathematician, whatever you do, there's a following attraction between your character, your ego, and your consciousness. Your consciousness wants to express itself through art or through whatever. And your character, you can say your higher self wants to express through your lower self, or your consciousness wants to express through your person. When you do the things you love, you can express something that comes from another place. And you can do that from any act. Like, have you seen the people? There are some people that when they do what they love, they shine. Like, and it can be whatever, being a vet, taking care of animals. You love children, you take care of kids, you work in a kindergarten, you make wooden furniture. Whatever you do, if it's your passion, you're expressing what your consciousness wants you to express. And you are happy when you do it. Don't listen to the people who say, no, the world is about suffering. You have to suffer. The world is a really hard place. Okay, in this life you will suffer. That's inevitable. But you don't need to focus on suffering. When you find what you are here to do, it will be something you incredibly enjoy. It will be something that it makes you incredibly happy. For me, making my photos and talking about my photos is something that makes me incredibly happy. If teaching makes you incredibly happy, become a teacher. That's why it's so important when kids start following their passion. You should encourage them. You know, if a kid, well, the kid wants to play the violin, but that's not a real job, you know. The kid wants to dance classical music, but I don't know, I think you should do something else. You should always allow kids to do what they feel like doing, even if it doesn't make sense to you, even if the kid wants to dance hip hop or whatever, or be a rapper. That kid is trying to start to express his consciousness in this world. And if you suppress it, you're creating a trauma. No, that's not a real job. Come on, being a hip hop dancer, playing the violin, playing the piano, no, you should work in a bank. You should be a lawyer. What are you doing? You're moving that person away from himself. You're creating a division. You're forcing his brain to think he can't do what he loves. And you can force your brain to think in that way. For example, you can say, okay, I hate my job and I hate my boss, but I need to pay the rent every day, every month, so I'm going to continue doing this horrible job with this horrible boss because I pay my rent. So you allow your brain to convince yourself you should do that. That's a really bad thing. But your consciousness cannot be fooled. In the world of consciousness, there's no space for lying. So when you're doing that, when you live an unhappy life, what you're doing is you're not allowing yourself to express in this world. And your brain can fool you into thinking that, but your consciousness cannot be fooled. So what happens when you live an unhappy life? That you create this trauma, and this trauma affects your emotional body. We don't only have a physical body. As we saw with Vanesa, we have a physical body, an astral body, a mental body, an emotional body, and a light body. We have many bodies. The only thing is, we are so trapped in this physical world that we think we only have one. We have forgot about all the other ones. So what happens when you're unhappy and you hate your job and you don't love your family and you're depressed? That your mental body creates this shield. And this shield doesn't allow your consciousness to come down, because your consciousness cannot be fooled. You cannot lie to yourself. Your brain can lie to your ego. But your consciousness will not come down as long as you're unhappy, because you can only express what your consciousness wants to express when you find your passion. When you find your passion, whatever it is, writing poetry, making music, taking care of kids, taking care of animals, whatever, when you do it with passion, then you're expressing your consciousness, that connection. Have you ever thought, why is it that I read a poem and I get so emotional with just a poem, just a few words? Or I listen to music and I'm about to cry. It's because you're connecting with the conscious, at the conscious level, with the artist that created that. So when you're really expressing, you're creating that frequency, that vibration. When I read a poem by one of my favorite poems, or when I listen to a song, I kind of connect to that same vibration that that person expressed when he created that poem. It can be 50 years ago or whatever, 1,000 years ago. I connect to that same energy, to that same frequency, which is not something physical. It's about emotion, melancholy, joy, bliss, whatever that melody or that poetry or that song brings to me. It's helping me connect to a place which is always there. I just connect to it, you know? But it's not something physical. It's something that is like the frequency I connect to. And that only happens when you create from your consciousness, when you allow your consciousness to calm down and to express in this world. That's why it's so important to follow your passion. Don't work in a work you hate. Don't work in a place where you hate your boss. Don't stay in a relationship with someone you don't love anymore. You have to be brave enough to say, okay, I don't want this job anymore. I don't know how to pay the rent, but I'm going to quit this job, because only when you find your passion, you're going to be happy. And the longer you stay in a job you don't like, with a boss you hate, the harder it will be to quit. So always follow your passion, because we all have a talent. We all have something we're good at. Some people are good talking in public. Some people are good taking care of others. Some people are good teaching. But we all are gifted. It's just the point of finding which one is your gift, because we all have something to do here. So the concept of this photo basically is that you should always follow your passion. Okay, now we're going to explain Olivia. So this is an artist that I really know very well. I didn't need to talk to her for a long time, because she's actually my ex-girlfriend. I had an 8-year relationship with her, so I didn't need to go into her world. I already knew her world. Olivia is a really delicate artist. And one day, she was in the pond of dreams, and she was diving underwater. And she found this koi fish. And she asked the fish, how do I get out of the pond? And the fish said, what do you mean going out of the pond? There's no way out of the pond. The pond is all that exists. And then Olivia thought, wow, this koi fish was born in the pond, so for him, there's nothing else. It's true, of course, he never went out of the pond. So he realized, he thought, oh, that's amazing. Of course, I'm asking this fish about directions to get out, but for the fish, there's no way out. And she realized many people actually live like that in the world. We believe that all that exists is only what we can see, which is also a really strange way of analyzing reality. How could all that exists be what we can see? We cannot see atoms. We cannot see the galaxies, we can't see the Milky Way, but we know it's there. So of course, humans can perceive what we need to live in this world, but we cannot perceive 100% of reality. So at this point she thought, I'm in the pond, diving and talking to a fish, and I'm not breathing. This must be a dream. So the same thing that happened to Vanesa Muñoz happened to Olivia. And when she realized she was dreaming, she thought, okay, then I can do whatever I want. This dream, if it's my dream, I can fly, because, I'm generating this reality in my brain. When you're dreaming, your brain is generating the reality in real time, and it does such a great work that you believe is real. Have you ever thought about that? In a dream, you think everything is real, but the people you interacted with, the building, the surrounding, everything is actually generated by your own brain in real time. So she thought, okay, if this is a dream, I can levitate and get out of the pond. So she started levitating, and she got out of the pond. And the koi fish was totally astonished, because he had never seen anybody going out of the pond. When she was out of the pond, she realized she was wearing her favorite kimono with pink flowers and blue waves. And she was wearing her favorite dress, designed by a friend of hers called Elisa. And she let go of her purse and her scarf. In an act of liberation, she just threw everything away. And at that point, time started slowing down, and she could see all the things she was wearing on her purse floating in the air. And she saw the Buddha statuette she bought in Japan. And that brought her to her trip to Japan, to Kanazawa. And she remembered she went to a small shop, and there was this Japanese boy, and she bought the statue, and he was wrapping it with his delicate hands, with so much care and so much love. And this boy didn't even know who she was. But the way in which she was wrapping it was almost like a ritual, like this is a present for you. And when she gave it to her, she didn't speak Japanese and the boy didn't speak Spanish or English, so they couldn't communicate, but she felt all this love coming out from this kid wrapping this figurine on this wrapped paper with pink flowers and blue waves. And she thought, you can express so much without words. Just the way you do things, the way you smile, the way you look at people, the care with which you wrap a little toy. And she was, for a second, she was about to cry. But then she thought, no, I can't cry, this kid, I don't even know this guy. So she went out of the shop really quickly, because the fact of thinking about crying in that shop with this boy make her feel kind of stupid or fragile. But the boy sensed that she was getting emotioned, and he smiled back with a really wide smile. He was like shining. So the next day she went to a onsen. Japan is a volcanic island, so there are many onsens there. Onsens are natural hot springs in which you can have a bath in hot spring in the middle of a mountain. This was a really special one. This was the Katsumachi Onsen. And she was there having a warm bath, and suddenly it started snowing. And she felt so small in the warm water. She felt like the outside world was so cold with the snow, that she was so warm inside the water. She felt really protected by the warmth of the water. And she had one of those moments in which you see everything around you and it's so beautiful, and you realize, wow, this world is so beautiful, and I'm normally so busy with my job and going to places and running around that I don't quiet my thoughts and look at the beauty around me. And for a moment she stopped thinking. I was just contemplating the snow falling on the water. She felt like protected by the water. She felt the same feeling of love she felt with the boy in the shop, but in this case, the love was coming from underground, from the water, from the planet. She thought like she felt like a baby inside the water, like if she was protected by the planet, by the warmth of the planet. And suddenly she started feeling like crying again, and she thought, well, I'm almost alone here. You know, it was like a Monday morning. There wasn't so much people in the onsen, so she thought, okay, if I feel like crying, I can cry. And she started seeing her teardrops falling into the water of the onsen, and she thought that the onsen seemed like a big ocean compared with the size of her tears. And at the same time, she was seeing the snowdrops also falling into the hot water and melting. And she thought, I'm always going to remember these moments. You know, these moments in which you think, I'm going to remember this moment for the rest of my life. And then when she stopped crying, it stopped snowing. And she saw the sun coming behind the cloud. And she felt like connected with the mountain, like, wow, I stopped crying and it stopped snowing. There's some kind of connection between me and nature. At this moment, she felt connected with the whole of nature. Like if the fact, like, stopped thinking, when she stopped thinking about all the things she had to do and she relaxed, she felt she recovered a connection with nature that was lost, because we normally think so much that our brain, this monologue, this voice in our head, doesn't allow us to connect with our surroundings. And at that moment when she saw the sun coming, she felt the wind blowing. When she felt the wind blowing, she also thought about her father. Her father died when she was around 30. And when she started thinking about her father, she came back from the onsen into the dream in the Pond of Dreams. And for a moment, she didn't know if she was actually in a onsen having a hot bath, and she had a dream of being levitating over a pond, or if she was actually levitating over a pond and she had a dream of being in a onsen in Japan. All the time space around her started being confusing, as if time wasn't a fixed continuum, as if time actually only exists in our brain. She started thinking that the future are just plans we have, tomorrow I'm going to do this. And the past are just memories in our brain. So both the past and the future don't really exist. The past are my memories, and the future are my plans and my projects. But they are both just in my mind. The only time that really exists is the now. Everything that happened in the past happened in the now. Everything that will happen in the future will happen in the now. So the past and the future are just illusions of my brain. When she realized that, she thought, we are obsessed with reaching eternity in the afterlife, but we are already living in eternity. We're living in the eternal now. Time is an illusion of the time-space continuum we are when we are physically alive. But it's just in our mind. The only time there exists is the now. And she had the feeling that at this dream she was in the now, because time had stopped. She realized that right beside the Buddha, she had this portrait of her father. Her father died when she was around 30. It was a really hard time for her, because she really loved her father. But she realized also that all the things he taught her, all the memories, were still with her. So, to some extent, she was still with her. She wasn't totally gone, because she could still apply all the things he taught her about being positive, about focusing on the positive things. So she thought, okay, he's not here physically with me anymore, but he's kind of here with me because I still apply all the things he taught me. She didn't have such a good relationship with her mother. Her mother was more strict. Actually, her mother took her to the psychologist because she was a really, really special girl. When she was a little girl, she had problems integrating in school. She had problems with other students, and she had problems with the educational system, which was based in authority and competition. She was a really, really sensitive kid, and the parents didn't realize that she was having problems because there was something wrong with the system we use to teach kids. And as a response to that system, she was developing this attitude like, I don't fit here. I don't fit in this school. This method is not right. The way they are trying to teach me is not right. When a student is a bad student, most times we blame the student, like you should be better. But we don't realize that most of these really sensitive kids are trying to call our attention to something that doesn't work properly. Olivia was one of these really sensitive kids. So her mother thought, okay, let's take her to the psychologist because she doesn't have any friends in school. It's like she's a really weird girl. She was taken to the psychologist and she was diagnosed as HSP, which means highly sensitive person. And she thought, being sensitive is supposed to be a good thing. How can you be too sensitive? And she thought, if in this planet being sensitive is supposed to be some kind of disorder, then I must come from some other planet. Because being sensitive is good. So she started telling people she came from another planet. And people said, you should be taken to the psychologist. And she said, no, I already gone. And they diagnosed me as HSP. Her father used to look at the stars, and there was a star that always called her attention, a really bright one. And her father told her that star was Sirius, and that it was so bright because it was a double star system. There were 2 suns. And she said there were not only 2, there were 3 suns. And she thought, okay, maybe I come from that star, from Sirius. That's why I'm so weird. That's why it's so difficult for me to integrate in this society. That's why it's so difficult for me to have friends in school. So when people ask her what's the meaning of HSP, she said it meant human Syrian person. And she said that her soul had come from Sirius to help humanity. But everybody said, okay, that's just stupid. So she started like forgetting about it and becoming an adult and believing, okay, maybe that's not true. But in this world of dreams, she connected again to that idea of coming from far, far away. And she was looking at all the things flying out of her purse, and suddenly everything started making sense. And she thought, sometimes life doesn't make sense. Life is like a really long movie without an ending. So many things that happen to us, they don't make sense. Like when her father died, she didn't understand why. She thought this life doesn't make sense. But after a while, she realized she became stronger, and she was stronger than she thought, and she was able to continue with her life. So the fact that her father died, made her realize she was stronger than she thought. And now that she saw it from this point, she thought, okay, that was a really painful experience, but actually I learned so much from that experience. And then everything started falling into place, like the puzzles of her life started falling into place, and she could see that everything that happened for a reason. And all the experiences, even the bad ones or the negative ones, had a positive outcome. She started looking at these things, and she saw the Transcend pen drive. She remembered she used to take this pen drive to the print shop to print all her pay stubs. She was doing street art and stickers and space stuff for a long time. This one's one of her characters. She had a character called Olive Oil, Olivia in Spanish, Olive Oil from Popeye, because people said she looked like her. So she used to do spin-offs of Olive Oil. This is Olive Oil mixed with Chun-Li from the Street Fighter game. And she used to put these stickers and pastes all over the place. She remembered when she went to the Carabanchel prison in Madrid to paint inside. She remembered the paste tabs she put in the Camden canals in London. She remembered the paste tabs she put in Berlin, in Germany, in Paris, in Istanbul, in Valencia. She remembered her first exhibition at the Miscellanea Gallery in Barcelona. And all these memories started coming back to her brain. Then she saw the Chanlivia stickers, the Virgen de Guadalupe figurine. She remembered her trip to Mexico with her friend Juan Pablo. She met so many incredible people in Mexico. She realized that people are really more open-minded in Latin America about many topics that we're not so open-minded in Europe. Then she saw her Game & Watch. They gave her this Game & Watch when she was 12, and it was like new. She was really a special kid. I mean, she got the same Game & Watch the same day that her brother got one. Her brother's Game & Watch lasted 2 months. He opened it up and he ate the batteries because he said they looked like round, small pills. So they had to take him to the hospital. After 2 months, his Game & Watch didn't work, and her Game & Watch was brand new 40 years later. So she was definitely a special kid. She would treat everything with care and love, as the Japanese boy wrapping up the figurine. She saw her purple glasses that allow her to see reality in a different color. And then the passport to the land of dreams. This was actually a present from another artist called Dadara. She gave her this passport, who had designed it himself, and she told her to always follow her dreams. And she thought, this is the best advice I've ever been given. And she realized that to be in the place she was now, it was really important to have the passport to the land of dreams in her purse. She didn't remember if it was there since the day Dadara gave it to her, or if she had put it there afterwards or before. All she knew is it had to be there, like all the other things floating around. They all were there because they had to be there. Everything seemed to be perfectly synchronized. And at that point she realized that time was an illusion, that the only thing that exists is the now, that in this dream in which she was seemed more real than her real life. And her real life at that point seemed to be like a dream, a really long dream when we're inside it, but just a fraction of a second for our timeless consciousness. And then she realized something she had never realized before, is that we experience this world, we experience this reality, this physical world, but we actually come from somewhere else. We are here experiencing this, but we come from the timeless world. And we live this life And we create this story. We learn of these lessons. And we learn from the story of our lives. And from this point, her life seemed like a dream. And this dream seemed to be reality. And this is the story of Olivia. And now I'm going to explain the last photo today, which is Inti. And after that, I will be able to answer the question, what is the meaning of art in the metaverse? If it's the same as the meaning of art in the real world, or if it's different. So Inti, the last picture I'm going to explain today, is an artist from Chile. Inti is actually the name of the god of the sun. And Inti is really interested in syncretism. Syncretism is the philosophy that mixes beliefs from different cultures. And syncretism has this theory that when we mix different religions and different beliefs, we're closer to the truth. Especially when we find parallelisms, like, for example, the fact that all cultures and ancient religions worshipped our planet as the Great Mother. For the Greeks, it was Gaia. For the Native Americans, it was the Pachamama. For the Romans, it was Terra. For the Indians, it was Bhumi. But all ancient religions had this idea that our planet is like a great mother that gives you all you need without asking for anything in return. Gives you the air you breathe, the ground you step on, the food you eat, everything you need, like a big mother. So when you find these parallelisms, you think, okay, there has to be some underlying truth. But because all these cultures that never had contact between them reach the same conclusion. Why the Native Americans and the Greeks and the Indians had the same beliefs if they were never in contact? How they developed these ideas? There must be some truth behind it. So in this picture, to represent the syncretism idea, he's wearing the typical hat from the Andes, but at the same time he's wearing a Victorian tunic, which represents the European tradition. And he's also wearing a t-shirt with graffiti-style letters representing the background of the artist. So it's a combination of different cultures from different continents. So with this picture, what we're trying to represent is how to analyze and how to see if we can reach the same conclusions with the ancient knowledge of the Native Americans and the present knowledge we have through astronomy. We're going to see if all the beliefs of the Native Americans actually fit with all the information we now have through science and observation of the planets. So for Native Americans, you remember that in the year 2012, some people said that the world was going to end because the Mayan calendar ends in the year 2012. So that was the end of the world. Well, of course, that wasn't true. We're in the year 2022 and we're still here. But the reason why they said that is because there was a cycle ending in the Mayan calendar. But the Mayan calendar didn't end on the year 2012. It just started the next cycle. It's like, imagine someone millions of years from now finds one of our calendars and they think, okay, Europeans believe that the world will end on the 31st of December because it's the last day on the calendar. Well, no. What happens is that after the 31st of December, you start a new cycle. So you have the 1st of January. Well, the same happens with the Mayan calendar. The 2012 was just the end of one cycle and the beginning of the next cycle. But why was the year 2012 the end of a cycle? What kind of cycle was ending there? Our calendar, the Gregorian calendar, is based only on our sun. So we have days and we have years. The day is the time that our planet takes to turn around itself, and the year is the time that our planet takes to turn around the sun. Okay, the Mayans added another layer to that, which was the fact that they believe that our system, our sun, moves around what they called the central sun. And that was what they call the Galactic year, which was really long. Galactic year is 250 million years, which is divided into galactic days. A galactic year has galactic days, which are 25,000 years, and each galactic day is divided into day and night, which is 12,000 years. So at 12,000 years is a galactic day, a galactic night, 12,000, both of them 26,000, and a whole year is 250 millions. So for the Mayans, the calendar was really different because it had another dimension, which was the central sun. So for the Europeans, we were really different because we didn't think that the sun was moving. We thought that the sun was static. And actually, at some point, we also thought that our Earth, our planet, was static and it was the center of the universe and everything moved around it. But then we discovered that it wasn't like that. Our sun is not static. Our sun moves around the universe, and it actually moves around the center of our universe, which is actually a supermassive black hole, which is called Sagittarius A. So we have discovered, after many centuries, that what the Mayans were saying is true. Our sun moves, and it turns around what they call the galactic sun, the central sun, which is not actually a sun. Now we have discovered it's not a sun, it's a supermassive black hole. But they were right, even if they call it central sun, they were right. The sun is moving, and we have galactic years, and they last a long time. So we have this idea of a black hole is like something that just absorbs all the energy. But we have discovered that black holes, when they absorb energy, they also produce energy. So black holes actually generate positrons and energy. What the Mayans believed is that when the cycle changes from the galactic night into the galactic day, there's a change in consciousness, in the same way you wake up. Okay, so now according to their calendar, we're getting out of a galactic night, which is 12,000 years, and we're starting the galactic day, which is another 12,000 years. So we're moving out of a time of 12,000 years of darkness in which people were asleep. These periods of darkness are normally characterized by violence, polarity, wars, misunderstanding, because we're really far away from the energy of the central sun. So as we're really far away from the energy of the central sun, that energy has to go through clouds, galactic clouds. It doesn't reach us with so much strength. So our consciousness is in a low level. We're like half asleep. When the galactic day starts, the energy from the central sun comes with more power, and we start raising our consciousness. So what the Mayans believed is that now we are starting, this is the first year of a 12,000 year cycle, so it's just the beginning of the beginning, we haven't realized yet, is that we're starting a time in which we're going to be more conscious. The consciousness of humanity is going to raise up. So it means there's not going to be so much war, there's not going to be so much misunderstanding and so much violence and so much polarity and division. It's going to be more harmony. Now we come to a point in which we say, okay, the Mayans were really intelligent, we don't know how they knew all these things. It's true that the sun moves, it's true that there's like something in the middle of our universe which is a black hole, but this thing of our consciousness going up, it doesn't make sense. If we look around, we see war, we see confrontation, we see violence, misunderstanding, so I don't see that the consciousness of humanity is going up. What's the thing? The thing is, when we start opening our eyes, the first thing we see is that everything is a mess. So people stop believing in politicians, they stop believing in the system, they stop believing in religion, because they realize that we have been slept for 12,000 years, and the system and the powers have been abusing us because we were sleeping. So the first years of adapting to the new galactic day are years of a lot of aggression, demonstrations, and anger from the people to the system, from the people to the politicians, from the people to the economic system, from the people to the religion. Because as our consciousness goes up, we see that we have been manipulated and mistreated for thousands of years. So the beginning is turbulent. There's a lot of energy, it's violent. But then after that initial turbulence, the stable times will come. This is what the Mayans believed, that the phase we're going to start is going to be more harmonized, and we're going to go into the next level of human consciousness. That's why there's a black hole here representing. The idea of a black hole is really difficult to grasp for us, because a black hole has so much gravity that it pierces space-time, so it creates some kind of portal. Then there's also the diamond, which is created by suffering under layers and layers of pressure for many years to become the hardest crystal in the world. This represents life in this physical universe, which is really hard. There's a lot of pressure and heat, but it also creates something beautiful. And the dice, which are showing the number 8, 5 plus 3, 8, which represents the movement of the galaxy. If we see cycles, if we see our life, how life works around, everything works in cycles. We see whatever, the water in a river reaches the sea and then it evaporates and goes to the clouds and then it rains and the cycle starts again. So when we start seeing these days and nights, we see that it's an eternal cycle. What we've been talking about, how our whole system moves around the galactic center, and how we go through galactic days and nights, which are 12,000 years each. This number 8 represents how the galaxy moves closer to the central sun, far away from the central sun. Now, in these past times, we've reached the bottom line, the place in which we're as far as we can be from the galactic center. Top level confrontation, polarity, war, misunderstanding. And now we're starting to slowly move up, move closer to the galactic center. Of course, we're not going inside, because otherwise we would be absorbed by a black hole. That's not going to happen now. It may happen in 2,500 million years. We're going to move slightly closer. This is the meaning of the number 8, is this eternal cycle. But then you say, what's the point of repeating something eternally? Like, okay, you go to sleep and you wake up and there's like another level of consciousness of humanity, and we repeat the same cycle again and again every 12,000 years? No. If we analyze it, if we see our days and nights, we can see that each day is not the same as the day before. You learn new things, you're wiser, you're older. So the same happens in galactic days and nights. The 12,000 year galactic day cycle, the consciousness of humanity is going to be higher than in the previous galactic day. So every galactic day, consciousness evolves a little bit more. Life is an everlasting evolution in which all natural forms are becoming better. It's a constant movement of creation, evolution, and learning. And this is what the number 8 represents in the picture of Inti. Now, after having explained all these pictures, I'm ready to answer the original question, which is, what is the meaning of art in the metaverse? So the meaning of art, for me, is to explain the inexplicable. The good thing about art is that you are not so trapped inside the limits of, for example, science. In science, you have to prove that everything you say is true. And if it's not something you can prove, people call it pseudoscience. Okay, in art, you can do whatever. You can talk about the galactic day and about the consciousness, and nobody says you're doing pseudo-art, which is really good. That's why I decided to be an artist and not a scientist. So for me, the meaning of art is to generate that kind of emotion, is to create stories. Stories about dreams, about consciousness, about galactic days, about scarabs, about balancing of energies, about the power of thought, about how thought defines where you want to go in your reality, in your life, about how when you focus on certain thoughts, you are the architect of your own future, so you define your reality, the real power you have to define your reality. You're not in the hands of the outside circumstance. You can define where you want to go. So through art, I try to express all these concepts, especially in the world in which we're living now, which is really far away from spirituality and from our essence and from what we really are. Inside we are that vital energy of life. What we truly are, we are all the same in essence. We are the life force. What keeps me alive is not my body, it's not my brain, it's that consciousness, that life energy. So through art, as people are already realizing that religion is not the answer, people are moving far away from religion, which is a good thing because religions have been used for many centuries to control people. Through art, we can kind of get closer to those ideas, to those inexplicable things. So art, music, painting, photography, poetry, all forms of art are a really good way of connecting with these kind of subtler realities. Art is the emotion it generates when you see it. It's not about the physical painting, it's not about the photo, it's not about owning it and hanging it in your wall. It's about the story, it's about the connection it creates. It's about what you feel when you see it, when you see the story and you remember, oh, that story about the number 8. So the meaning of art is exactly the same in the real world and in the metaverse. When you buy an NFT or you buy a painting or you listen to music or you read a poem or whatever, the real meaning is that emotional connection. So the meaning of art in the metaverse, after explaining all these pictures, I'm ready to justify that it's exactly the same as it has ever was, to connect with the world of consciousness, to stop thinking, to admire the beauty of the world, the beauty of the universe, through any form of art. That's the meaning of art before, it's the meaning of art now, and it's the way it will continue to connect with those things. Thank you very much for coming.